Hello there.
Hello, and welcome back to the Project Failure Files. I'm Sharon Weaver, CEO of Preventive Consulting.
And I am Christian Buckley, founder of Collab Talk. And welcome to another episode of our series where Sharon and I will explore what not to do as you manage projects.
This series is geared towards anyone and everyone who has ever had the title of project manager or anything like it, as maybe someone who's responsible for leading or overseeing projects. Simply put, if you've ever managed a project, this show is definitely for you.
And in each episode of Project Failure Files, we'll talk about some of the common pitfalls in project management, sharing our personal stories and experiences, and exploring strategies and best practices to help you to be successful.
So for this episode, we are talking about the problem of failing to embrace self-awareness and humility. In other words, blaming everybody else for everything.
I knew you were going to bring this up. It's your fault that it's on the list to discuss. The structure for these episodes is pretty simple. First, we define the topic and we talk about it, and we do some basic analysis of the scope of the issue.
And then second, we share real life stories and hopefully help you to understand the scope of the issue.
Yeah, I know it moves around a bit. This is a larger topic today too. We definitely are going to jump in and talk about practical solutions and actionable strategies with the goal of improving your project management skills.
And of course, especially for a topic like this one, we always cover the cultural issues because it's often what determines lasting change. You really need to understand how each topic we cover can impact your team and your organizational dynamics.
And we always wrap things up with talking about preventive measures. What can I do to not do the thing? So it's a lot to cover. Was that well put there? It's a lot to cover in 30, 40 minutes, but we're up for the task.
So let's kick things off. Today we're talking about embracing self-awareness and humility. Christian.
And of course, feel free to comment, to share your feedback. We do read this stuff. You can follow us out on X, Twitter, Twix, whatever you call it there. We're out there. You can find us, of course, if you Google or Bing us, you can find us out on the socials. You can find back episodes of this series, which is every Monday. It is weekly, and it's every Monday, rain or shine, holiday or not, every Monday at 9 a.m. Pacific. You can find us. And then there's also a community over on Facebook. So come join us, share your horror stories, share your questions. And we love to share more about what people are talking about, what people are doing in this space around these topics. And there's a lot more to come from this series. And we are also working on a book. We're talking about that openly, aren't we?
Yeah.
I guess we just did.
Yeah,
so
we just did.
Yeah, it's happening there.
Nice.
But yeah, a lot going on. So Sharon, when you think of this topic, what should people not do?
Well, I'm the humblest and the most humble.
I know that about you.
No.
Second only to me. So yeah.
So, I mean, I think what not to do, and this is, we were just chatting about this. This is so pervasive, especially in the culture that we live in, is this idea of we know everything, we're the best at everything, and that I don't want to share any weaknesses at all as a project manager, because my only job is to point out what everybody else is doing wrong and to not really look at anything holistically.
But Sharon, what if you are the best and you don't ever make mistakes?
Well, I am the best and I don't ever make mistakes. No.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking about this too, like what are some specific stories? I was thinking of, imagine a project manager that believes in showing any form of vulnerability or admitting mistakes somehow undermines their authority. And that's a real problem. So they don't then seek feedback from the team. The other side of this, see, I'm already thinking into the layer of that. Like, I've worked in some organizations where it was very difficult to go and ask for the feedback to get that interaction. It was very toxic environments. And so I wasn't confident that I would do anything but get beat up. Managers who felt that they no matter how solid a project was running, that they just had to be the naysayer to pick apart something, to find some negative aspect, real or contrived, to pick apart the state of a project. And so it's difficult. I mean, how prepared are you, or have you been, when you've been a project manager, for somebody to come and say, hey, can you provide some feedback on my role and what I've been doing, within this project? That can be hard to do if you're not used to it. That's why it needs to be, it's like a muscle. You need to strengthen that. You need to get better at that.
Yeah, I think there's this cultural concept of don't mistake my kindness for weakness. And it's not synonymous. And I think sometimes, to your point, if somebody comes in and they are more vulnerable, they are more open, they are more, transparent, I think, in some of the ways that they do things, I think oftentimes that can be perceived as weakness. And so I think instead what you need to think about is, how can you be more objective? Maybe not how can you even be more kind, or not how can you be more humble, but how can you be more objective? And because a lot of times we mistake the idea of strength and power and, not being personal, as, well, that's a way that you can kind of, assert that power in whatever you're doing. And I think instead, the idea of self-awareness and humility is around, how can I look at my project objectively and look at the things that need to happen, and then approach it in a kinder way, in a more helpful way, by using the data, by using the information, and being able to provide that feedback in a, I don't want to say like a nicer way, but in a less threatening style.
Right. But so as somebody who has been, throughout my career, I realized that the way that people interpret passion and around a topic or an area, and the work that I do, I've really enjoyed most of the work that I've done through my entire career as being very aggressive. And it can come off as aggressive to people and personality styles that don't understand. And it's like, I'm not trying to be, attacking mode. I just have that, I think, resting aggressive face.
I was just, it's funny. I was just having this conversation with somebody the other day. I do a lot of mentoring and coaching, and there's a fine line between confidence and arrogance. And I think often confidence can be mistaken for arrogance, but arrogance can also be mistaken for confidence. And I think one of the things both of us struggle with is we are both fairly confident people. We've got extensive careers. We've done really great things. And so I think sometimes that can be mistaken for arrogance.
Well, that's why having some degree of self-awareness, and I take it as a compliment too, where people come and says, like, I just thought you were very aloof, and I'm going to realize like, no, you're just focused on doing stuff. And but a lot of it, and you've heard me use this phrase, it's about developing healthy habits. Just, so recognizing that, being self-aware. So recognizing your own strengths, your own weaknesses, the impact that your behavior, your style has in other people. I have become more aware of how my style lands, and I go in and try to reassure. And usually when I have conversations with people and then they understand more my personality type, it's less threatening. It doesn't come off as aggressive, just as Christian gets excited and passionate about things that he loves doing. And it's part of it. It's the theater aspect of my personality. The personality style. Maybe we should
expressive. You're an expressive, aren't you?
I am a promoter personality style. So what is that? It's like an ENFJ or anyway. Right. I did go back and look at that. I know when I was at Microsoft, they do the whole the insights training, the colored bricks.
There's so many different ones. There's colors.
There are a lot.
Animals and Myers-Briggs and DISC and.
Well, most of it's based off of the Myers-Briggs. At the core of it, it's all the Myers-Briggs, which goes back 50 years. 60 years. But a lot of it, like I'll just say that mine with the colored brick method I was a yellow, red, green, blue. And what that equates to is the yellow is the collaborative. It's the let's work together on this. Let's share ideas around that. and number 2, and they're on a 100-point scale, each one of them. So I was 82 yellow, 78 red, and red is the action, the director, the project manager. Like, let's go take the idea. Now let's go take action. The green, which I was like a 60, 55, 60, which is the work together. Hey man, you need a hug, or like, let's bring people along with you, not leave people behind. And then my lowest, which was in the 40s, which was the data side of it. And my, idea generation, take action. My view of the world is, we'll hire the quant.
So
we'll bring that person in. Yeah.
So in the DISC methodology, you'd be a good strong D then.
Okay. As long as I'm not having to throw that disc because of my bad shoulder, I'm good. But
I think they're all fun. I don't think there's any right or wrong personality. Like I think, to your point, it's, knowing yourself, right? So I think there's all these different personality profiling tools that are out there. I think personally, my favorite is probably the DISC method or the Enneagram method. I don't know if you've done the Enneagram before. Those are both fantastic. They're kind of deep diving a little bit more than the Myers-Briggs does. But I think, more importantly, like we've talked about, methodologies and processes and programs, if you want to know who you are and you want to know more about yourself, go look at one of those things, fill out the free thing online, and learn more about who you are as a person.
But that's just part of it too. I mean, yes, the self-awareness, which can be the most difficult part. I mean, if you go into the psychology behind it, that we are your weakness in, the id, the ID of recognizing itself. And so that's something that it takes work. We're easy to point out, to identify the personality traits and the weaknesses of others, but we're blind to a lot of our own traits. And so it's good to go through an activity.
Except for us, we're not blind.
No, of course not. No, but it's good to go through that activity at a team level. And it's not so much that you have to buy into the methodology, to your point. It's that you are reflecting, you're self-assessing, you are better understanding yourself, how people perceive you. And this all sounds very wishy-washy to some people that are out there, but no, here's the business value of it. When you better understand, and we've talked about this in past episodes, when you better understand yourself and your style, how you work, how you communicate, how you connect, what upsets you in working, where people aren't responsive, or whatever the things are. If you understand that about yourself, then start to recognize the traits in other people, then you're better able to say, like, I can start working with Sharon and I could say, I could recognize Sharon has very similar personality. So I know the most effective way to get her attention, to work well, to what she needs, I can do these things and we'll get along perfectly. Somebody who is more of the data analytical, needs more time around those. Like, I understand that. It frustrates me, but I want to move. I want to learn and fail quickly and grow quickly, more agile. Where the data people, they need more of that analysis and time and discussion and consensus and those things to be able to make a decision. When you recognize that, you say, all right, I know, okay, here's the things that I need to do, and I need to slow down. This is what I need to provide, and ask these other questions that might be different because of that. But it all comes down to that self-awareness and humility, where you are in the project, your role, and what change you can actually affect.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right, Christian. When you think about, sometimes project managers have some control over their team, like, who's on their team or what resources they're getting to use. Sometimes they don't. But I think understanding the resources that you have and understanding exactly where they fit it's not even just communicating with them, it's also understanding. So for example, there are certain personality types that are definitely more introverted and would rather, be kind of left alone and be allowed to be individual contributors. And they'll like just throw a task list over the wall and don't ever talk to me, keep the lights turned off, just throw food over once in a while. Right. We see that a lot, especially in like engineering and development, where, they're just, because they're so focused and they're so good at what they do, a lot of times that's just how their personality is. And then we also see personality types that are like if I have to sit inside for 2 more minutes, I probably will melt down. And there are those personality types that they wake up and every morning they think about, I want to go be with people. I want to go socialize. I want to go outdoors. I want to go, I want to have art and love and life in my life. And the thing that's important about this is if you understand what kind of person you are and you understand the different types of people that are out there, you're going to know that you cannot put that second personality in a cube with no light for 8 hours a day. And they're not going to be a successful resource. But on the other side, you can't force that other resource personality type to go to parties all the time and be on meetings 8 hours a day and expect them to be successful either. So understanding who you are and understanding who they are and understanding how everybody works together, I think even though you're not a hiring manager, even though you're not a people manager, I still think it's on you to understand the team dynamics and how to manage them.
That is very critical. You just completely reminded me when I've been a people manager, and I still do this, and I had multiple copies of this book by Marcus Buckingham, who I believe was at Gartner. I think it was part of his. He was at Harvard and Gartner, and anyway, his path. You can go find him online. But his book, First Break All the Rules, is fantastic. And so I look at it as essential reading. There's 3 books that I would give out to almost every one of my employees. That one I would give out whether they were interested in or not. I was like, you need to read this and you'll better understand my style. The other 2 were by Seth Godin. One was Purple Cow, which is awesome. And then my other favorite is All Marketers Are Liars, which is a great book too. But on First Break All the Rules, the body of the book is around recognizing people's strengths and managing to their strengths.
Yes.
So to go and build, when you have the luxury as a manager, as a people manager, as a project manager, to go and put people together. And I've actually blogged about the well-rounded employee myth. Like that, I don't want well-rounded employees. I want people that are the weirdos in a specific direction. They are savant-like in that skill. And then I build a team of these savants that are experts in these different areas where they play off each other. So they have their strengths and I know their strengths and I use them. I mean, when you leverage people for their strengths, they're more interested in doing that work for you. It's
100%.
They're the most passionate. Right.
Yes. 100%. No, I agree with that.
Go read that book though, folks. It's fantastic.
Well, and I think on the same token, the more, we talk about humility, the more that you understand, to go into towards your strengths. And there's also another thing, if anybody's interested, called Strength Finders, which is a really good tool that will really help you identify, like, here's the areas you're good at. The same thing is understanding, like, what are the things that are not your jam, right? In some groups, you'll hear this, what's your zone of genius? Anything that falls outside of your zone of genius is considered this. We don't talk about them in terms of weaknesses. A lot of times it's like, what's not the thing that you're best at? And understanding that is as important as anything else. And so then when you get into these roles and you're working with your team, it's really nice to be able to say, that's not my zone of genius. That's not my area. That's not the thing that I'm, the best at. And I really want to lend my time and talents to the things that I'm best at. It allows you to have that vulnerability to then share that with your team. And by leading by example, the hope is then your team members will also say, to your point, right? What's the thing that you're really, really good at? Figure that out and be really good at it and turn down everything else. When somebody says to me, can you do this? No, that's not the thing I'm best at. Here's where I need to be spending my time.
It's so funny being open and having that as part of the discussion. Like, here's where I play the best. I mean, we had this conversation with when we first started working together, and you asked me, like, hey, are you a resource? Could you come help with these things? I'm like, yeah, that's not my, do I know something about it? But I'm more of a generalist there. Like I definitely have an opinion, but no, I mean, that's not my expertise. It's not what I'm focused on. Here's what I can go and do. And so by doing that, I mean, it enhances, but when you're open about your strengths and weaknesses and have that level of humility, and it's part of the open discussion, It helps with decision making. It helps you build trust and rapport with people. It helps you promote personal growth. When you think about that, if your direct manager has no idea what you're passionate about and can't identify what your strengths are because you're so busy trying to do everything kind of evenly, then what you need to be open about. Here's the kind of opportunities I'm really looking for to grow more. This is my strength. So I'd like to do more of this kind of work. So if something happens down the road, some other project, like that one would be perfect for me. And here's why. Here's what I can go and do. And that goes back to, is the manager thinking, again, how can I leverage people's strengths to do more? If you have people that are focused on doing work that are their core strength areas, they will outperform on everything that you give them in that category. So I've built a couple teams, 2 different companies, where we just crushed everything handed to us because we knew our roles. And so that is, it improves communication. It improves the overall kind of positive work environment around that. It enhances collaboration, where people then start to understand, going through a methodology. If you do it as a team building activity, I mean, we actually did one. This goes back quite a ways, back to EDS, where we actually did an offsite, and the vendor that was brought in to do this personality testing and the mapping for our org, and there was about, 50, 60 people in the org. They said, think about the people that you get along the best with, the people that you have, like, don't say any names, and the people that you have a more difficult time with. And they went through this scoring mechanism. Again, the methodology is not as important, but they laid out a grid with tape on the ground, this outdoor patio area, and everyone went and stood where they were in this mind mapping exercise. And they're like, now look around. And the 2 people that I had a daily difficult time working with were on the exact opposite end of the grid. Like, of course, like, I didn't need the grid to show me that, like, I knew it, intrinsically, I understood that. But going through that exercise helped me again, and from that, then develop the skills. Like, what can I do with the people that I'm having a difficult life? What can I do to better work with them? So that helped me better develop that, but also to recognize, this is where I was, this is my style, here are my strengths, here are my limitations.
Yeah. And I think by, part of humility is just being open and vulnerable about being a human. I think this is another thing we really struggle with. And we've mentioned this in the past, but I'm definitely a personal development junkie for sure. And I think one of our kind of cultural issues right now is the idea of this kind of put us up on the shelf mentality. We're a shiny object, we're an asset to the company, whatever. And so that asset can't have any flaws, and it can't be.
We are shiny objects, though, Sharon. I mean, just again, we recognize this, that we are that, but we are diamonds.
I have a glass cage. I have a glass cage and everything, a little dome that goes over me at night, to just seal in the goodness. No, I mean,
I only travel by pneumatic tubes in my household. I never touch surfaces. Yes. Christine.
But I think we do. We think of it this way, and we think of resources in the business this way, and we think of leaders and project managers this way, as, they're this kind of like asset that can't be touched. And I think, when we talk about self-awareness and humility, the thing not to do is to approach it that way. Don't approach your resources as little objects that are under a little glass dome that are not real. It's just a reminder, I think, sometimes not only are we people, but having the humility to understand that everybody in our team are real people with real lives. They go home to real families with real issues and real health and real world. And so part of the humility and the self-awareness is, it's just understanding that we're all human and we're all the same.
I often say, and we've had these conversations too, but I often say that, the one positive thing that came out of the pandemic was that it changed a bunch of things just, in an instant, globally, where I think people for at least a while became very empathetic to the reality of work-life balance and what that actually means. The fact that we're, like I've shared before, the fact that I was giving a webinar, this is years ago, but giving a webinar, and my power went out. We were about 10, 15 minutes into this, and I had about, 30, 40 people on this webinar, and this one VP from a big company, and the power went out. And so, of course, I go, and I wasn't sure, like, so what's going on? It wasn't me. It's like the whole neighborhood, like construction related power was cut to the whole area, was out for a couple hours. So immediately I message on my phone back to my team. There was somebody thankfully monitoring, from the marketing team, but saying it's like, oh, so apologies, we're gonna have to reschedule because like the power's out. He's not gonna get it back, right? So we can't move forward with this. And this VP that was on there from this major company was so offended at how unprofessional it was of me to cut it like that. Right.
How dare you?
It makes no sense. I know it makes no sense. And called, and I reported to my CEO, called my CEO to complain about me and how unprofessional it was, and never wanted to have me interact with him. I'm like, he's like, what did you say? I'm like, nothing. I was doing fine, and the power went out. And so I found, so I had other people that I knew inside this company, and I kind of investigated, like told them what happened with this guy. And they're like, oh yeah, like this is a known, this guy is just an a-hole. It's like, don't worry about it. I'm like, oh, I'm not. I said, but if he were to go and anyway, I won't talk about revenge politically of different things around that, but I just said, like, what a jerk. That kind of stuff doesn't happen. I think, again, in the pandemic, where people started to recognize that, like, famously the CNN interview where the correspondent was with his family in South Korea, and the little kids came in through the back door while he's live. Love that whole experience. But that happens where family member in pajamas walks by in the background, or the cat or dog, walks in front of the screen, or, whatever, those kinds of things. And we all just kind of laugh it off. It's just, we've relaxed a bit on those things to recognize the human side.
Mm-hmm.
We can't forget that.
Yeah.
We need to, hopefully it changed people permanently around how they look at this. And some of it, like, we're just taking some things far too seriously.
Mm-hmm.
And like, it comes back to, does this really impact our goal, what we're trying to do, how people are contributing, the things that are out there? Certainly there are people that are unprofessional. There's things that you need to do. Like, I'm not knocking that process, but just recognizing, and it comes down to being more self-aware. Am I being overly critical? That's something that you should be self-aware of. Am I truly providing constructive feedback of something that went wrong, or am I just attacking somebody because of a mistake that they know that they made?
Well, and I think that also, to your point of putting people in their zone of genius, putting people to the things they're good at, they're going to be more productive. I believe 100% that when people are more engaged, they're more productive. I also believe that when you treat people as humans, and you understand that, like, we have good days and bad days, we have high days and low days, we have, different levels of energy and different levels of motivation, that when you treat people that way and you understand what's going on in their lives, I also believe they're more productive. Because at the end of the day, if you give people grace in the moments that they need it, and that can be yourself, that can be your teammates, that can be people you work with, then I also think that when they do have a good day, they are far more likely to be productive and to respond to you in the same way, because they've been treated that same way. And I'm with you. I'm very woo-woo, and I believe in you get what you give. But I do think in general, it's good business tactics and good business strategy to just really understand that, we just all have good days and bad days. And I think it's something that's has been missing in our business culture for a long time. I agree. I think post-pandemic, I think a lot has changed. A lot is, kind of relaxed a little bit around that. I feel like things are actually continuing to chug on the way they were before. And I really hope that we don't lose or forget that anytime soon.
Well, I was thinking, I often say, as collaboration technology experts, one of the things that I always talk about is the fact that when you look at one reason like adoption metrics are so important is because if you find out that only 30% of people in your organization are actively collaborating, there's a huge chunk of people that are never involved in those things. Like there's innovation that's not happening. There are relationships not being built. There's intellectual property that is not being worked on because people aren't in there. Everyone benefits when more people are collaborating. Likewise, more of us, we benefit. There's more cohesion, there's more collaboration, there's more innovation. We're more adaptable to change when people are self-aware and they're respective other people of different styles and what is happening in people's personal lives. I mean, this is why I think that the key to success of managing people is knowing your people, having personal relationships, knowing the strengths and weaknesses of your direct reports and your key stakeholders. And there's more cohesion that comes through that. I was thinking of, to wrap up here, thinking about preventive measures. Like, what can we do to develop and maintain self-awareness and humility, especially in a project management role? And we talk about this almost every time. So this is a broken record list of things here. But number one was seeking regular feedback, not being shy to ask for feedback, and not being shy to give feedback. You may find that you have to introduce that topic and call it 360 feedback or whatever it is. It should just be part of the culture that you develop, where people feel comfortable to tell you, like, hey, I think this is working great with you. And here's areas where I see that you could improve. Like, I would appreciate it if you did more of this, especially in communication style. Like, I found myself going back to like a couple clients, so I won't name anybody here, but where I found myself saying at the end of the day, where their inability to clearly think through what they wanted and what with the information they needed around the goals. Like, I found myself going back to them and said, all right, this is what I'm providing. What do you need that's different from what I'm providing today? You're not happy with this. This meets the what we discussed up front and we agreed, and this is what the communication would be. This is the reporting method. Here's it towards the outcome. Like, what am I doing that that needs to change, that adjust? And if they can't, are they just complaining again, something about their personality, something for me to understand about them, that they don't have the clarity of thought to articulate, this is what I need that's different from that. And so one thing that I do with that feedback is then reviewing, like, what is the communication? What are the things that are missing? What would you like to see more of? What would you like to see less of? So sometimes you have to, tease it out of people to get that feedback to where they're more comfortable, or it becomes a habit where they are more of, hey, I saw this, didn't like that. Don't do that anymore. We need to do more of this thing. It will be a positive change for your organization. It will prevent a lot of the problems.
Yeah, I think the most important thing you can really do to that, is really just identify the strengths and weaknesses within your team, which we've talked about quite a bit. But to that point, the feedback idea is just making sure that everybody kind of knows what's going on around them, but also know yourself, know your team members, and encourage your culture, underlying culture, to be aware of each person individually and how you work dynamically as a team, and invest the time, energy, and resources in making sure that happens.
Yeah, I think if you take the time on a regular basis, again, maybe it's like monthly, you're going and looking at this space, but by focusing on self-awareness and humility, project managers can create a more effective, cohesive, and innovative team environment. That's what you're talking about. You're talking about impacting, changing the culture, changing the environment that you're working in. And when you have an environment that is able to talk, is able to share, that is more vulnerable, recognizing weaknesses, you're going to be more able to adapt and change and create and be like, roll with the punches of when things don't go to plan. And hey, we need to go adjust and move forward. You're going to be more ready to go for change. That's the best
more
way to describe it.
agile.
Right. I always say that a culture that is good at change management, in looking for, recognizing, adapting to, and then taking action on change, no matter what it is. If that's part of your culture, you will have a competitive advantage to every other company out there. It's huge.
Agreed.
Well, that's it for this week's episode. Please be sure to follow us and subscribe. Of course, if I've had out there on the screen for a while, you can follow Sharon and I out on the X, on the Twix, the Twitter, whatever you want to call it out there. You can find us on, of course, you can look up Sharon and my under my Buckley Planet brand. You can find us all over the interwebs. We have a community out on Facebook, Project Failure Files group. Please join the group, share your horror stories, your best practices, topics that we've not covered. It might be in our plan. It might already be part of a future episode. But if not, like, we're always adding, we can always add episodes. And then, of course, you can find all of the previous episodes, the series, which is every Monday, always at 9 a.m. Pacific. You can find us, rain or shine, holiday or not. There will be an episode out there. I know we signed up for this, Sharon. We're doing it.
Hey, they got to binge us and catch up with us.
That's right. Binge. What are you doing over the holidays? Binge. That's right. But thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next Monday with another episode.
See you next time.